everybody, and welcome to another episode of Next Trip Live. We've got a couple really special guests on this episode. Stan Gola from SNS Bucktails and the famous John Skinner. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Hello.
Yeah, this is exciting. If anybody out there has, we've got already got a bunch of viewers. If anyone has any questions, post it up in the comments. We will answer every one of them as long as they're clean. And
not with this rowdy bunch.
All right, exactly. But no, it'll be exciting. So let's start with talking about some of the SNS products that you have your name on, John, and we'll let you guys kind of just take it from there. Stan, what do you got?
Well, let's talk about one of John's favorite, the John Skinner Fixed Fluke series.
Nice. That's the fixed hook. Hold that up again. So we can get a little better shot of it. Nice. And that, what weights does that come in?
It comes from half all the way to 8 ounces. John wanted it designed with a Gamakatsu hook. John loves the Gami hook, which John can tell you. It has a little more length, and they're very, very sharp. And the gap's a little smaller, too.
Got it. So, John,
yeah, I can tell you how that. Let me tell you how that one came about. So, this Spro makes an excellent bucktail, but at some point, we were fishing in the Sound a lot of half, 3/4, 1 ounce, that kind of stuff, and ounce and a half at most. And we used a lot of 1 ounce bucktails, and they changed the hook. Spro did in there, and they made it. It was a beefier hook, great for stripers and stuff. But boy, it just wasn't a great hook for those little 4-inch Gulp grubs fishing for those fluke in the Sound. So, for years I was making my own with the Gamakatsu 604 hooks. And yes, that was one of the first things I had Stanley make for me. I've tied so many bucktails in my life. And, funny thing is I'm allergic to the deer hair. So, there was really a problem tying them. So it was great having Stanley take over with that stuff.
When, and this is a question I know that a lot of people have asked me, when do you choose between the fixed hook and the swing hook? I have all swing hooks.
I can't.
When do you decide when to use the two?
Yeah, it's weight, and so here's the thing. And boy, if you have access to clear water, like a swimming pool or something, if you take one of those little bucktails like he just held up, like 1 ounce, ounce and a half, even a 2 ounce, and you try to do that rapid vertical jigging or any kind of jigging, it's easy. You're gonna see plenty of action on the jig. Now, when you start thinking about out between like Montauk and Block in that deeper ocean water where many times you're using like 3 to 4 ounces, you may be going higher than that at times, but you're not usually under 3. When you start looking at bouncing a 4 ounce bucktail, especially if that hook eye is like centered on the jig so that if it would hang perfectly horizontally while you're holding on, if you have a line tied to that hook eye and that thing is hanging level. Now, if you try to jig a 4 ounce bucktail like that, you're not going to see like hardly any action on the jig at all. Mm-hmm. Now, with the swing hook, especially since Stanley's got that hook, that eye, by the eye, I mean where you're tying your line. Since he's got that shifted a little more forward, if you even had a fixed hook shifted with that eye a little more forward, when you jig it, you're going to see like a dipsy doodle kind of action. But when you've got the swing hook, you've got that beautiful undulation. There you go. I can get that in there. You've got an undulation like that, as opposed to if that thing is hanging level and you're trying to bounce like this, good luck with that, especially if you've got a 6-inch grub on there, which is what we use. This just doesn't work. However, this works, and I've got it on underwater video. It's very clear. So it's the simple answer is weight. When I'm looking at 3 ounces and up, I definitely absolutely want to be bouncing that swing hook.
Mm-hmm.
And what John's talking about with that eyelet, I got one right here. It sits up way further,
There you go.
up towards the nose of it. So she's like this more like that, where she's not here in the middle, like John said.
Right.
If you can see that.
Right.
Yep.
And this is actually the synthetic hair on this one.
It looks great. I like the look of that a lot. That's nice.
Yeah, this is it took a while to find this one, but it's really hard to tell the difference between this and the real hair, just looking at it. And then the action in the water is pleasantly much better than I thought. I'm very pleased with it so far.
Good deal. Nice. One of the things, John, that between the swing hook and the fixed hook, and you talked about the action, it's, the undulating action. Do you find that in the colder water months, say like, we start May 1st, we start fluke fishing, the water's colder. Do you feel that less action on the bucktail draws more strikes when the water's colder, just because of the fact that, pretty much all the life is moving a little bit slower?
Actually, I haven't seen that. And, when I think back to before I moved out to Greenport and I was fishing the Sound a lot and early May. Yeah, now we were rapid vertical jigging there, and, the fish were aggressive. And that's Sound water, especially the first half of May. That's cold water out there. And, yeah, I haven't noticed that. I haven't noticed that the slower presentation. But there are days, and they're rare, but I have seen days where, that definitely a less active bounce has outproduced. But I mean, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, how many days have you seen that? And, it might be two, but, there was one in particular that, look, you get used to fishing a certain crew on the boat, and there was somebody who was doing exceptionally well. And I just knew by the gear he was using and the way he fishes that there was no way he was getting the action on his jig that I normally put on mine. And I have a hard time not putting action on. I actually went a little heavier than I needed to, just to deaden the damn bucktail. And boy, I caught up to him and passed him. And it was no question in my mind. But that was summer. It wasn't a cold water thing. It just happened to be whatever it was that day. They wanted a deadened approach, but boy, that's rare because they love motion. They're like, it's the magnet to them.
Yeah, the fluke are a super aggressive fish, and I think, if you could, we always talk about it on the boat. They're, to me, just as aggressive as a bluefish. They just live on the bottom,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
it's a good comparison between the two. One of the things that I've always been, and especially last year, I was really trying to focus on practicing the feel. A lot of guys watch your videos and say, how is it that John Skinner everyone else is using a 4 or 5 or 6 ounce bucktail, and John Skinner's using a 3 ounce? And I always tell them, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, and I tell them it's the feel that you have, and you're not dropping the bucktail down and letting it soar, and have your line, right, taken way off. You're actually fishing a very short piece of water that's next to the boat. Is that accurate?
No, it's the line. It's the choice of line. Look, braided line isn't created equal. First of all, you've got to use nothing heavier than 15-pound test braid. A lot of times when I get that comment, the first question I ask them is, what pound test line you're using? And almost every time I'm hearing something between 30 and 50-pound test line. And, so that is just a non-starter right there. But the other thing is, even if you're using 20, if you're using like a 4-strand braid, that, so there's two things. Look, there's the line diameter and there's the smoothness. If you look at something like Berkeley X9 and you look at the published diameters there, that line is very, very thin. But if you drag it through your fingers, it's very smooth. So between the smoothness and the low diameter, it's all a game of reducing drag in the water. And I'm not sitting here trying to do a Berkeley X9 commercial, but that I don't know of a line that's smoother and thinner than that, and it's very strong. I feel like you can anchor the boat sometimes with that stuff when you get hung up. So that's the main thing right there, is very smooth, a smooth 8-strand braid, and that's a big one right there.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever experimented? Speaking of smooth, the Berkeley FireLine, which I used to use a lot of back in the day in freshwater, but FireLine is something I was thinking about experimenting with. I had found some 16-strand braids out in Japan, but they're super expensive, and I was thinking about the FireLine. Have you ever used that before?
Oh yeah. So I know a lot about FireLine. FireLine isn't a braid; it's heat fused. So braided line is you take the filaments and you braid them, and FireLine is heat fused. So what you end up with, so my answer is you don't want to do that, because it's a thicker line. So for example, 20-pound test FireLine has the diameter of like 30-pound test. Excuse me, 30-pound test braid. So it's a much thicker line. However, if for like casting and stuff, it's the most trouble-free line there is. When my kids were like, 6 and 7 years old and casting for bluefish off the beach, I had them use FireLine because the stuff was so trouble-free, never any knots. It's got no stretch, so it's got those braided properties. But the big penalty is it's thicker than braid by quite a bit, so it's not a good choice for that fluke jigging.
Oh, that's good to know. That is good to know. I was definitely something I was wanting to experiment with. Stan, show one of the other. You said you had some other colors, I guess. That's
pink and pearl.
Yeah. So let's get into a little bit about color.
Oh, John's a white guy.
Yeah.
He sees me smiling because he knows what I asked.
He'll take some pink shine now. I got him use a little bit of pink, but he's white, and that's what works for John. And that's
but you know why? Is because you can alter the color with the Gulp grub. I mean, we've got you get a rainbow full of Gulp grubs in there, and so I just glow. In fact, it's just not white; it's glow white. Because why not glow? There's no penalty there.
Yeah.
So yeah, whenever I ask Stanley for bucktails, it's all glow white, and then I vary the Gulp color.
Yeah.
So now nobody's going to buy you colored bucktails. So, oh well, sorry.
They'll snow buy them.
Yeah, we had talked about it on another episode. There was definitely a place for glow. We've actually got a couple questions. Let's see here. Somebody, see, it says Susan Jason said white glow rules, and that's what last year we had one trip. It was actually the last trip of the year, last day of fluke season, and glow just, I mean, it was the color. And I didn't use it very much, to be honest. I was a pink shine, blue fuse. Yeah, I never really got into glow. And actually, I think, unfortunately, that was, in the freshwater world, when you saw glow, it was like, oof, that was the last color on earth you would ever think of using.
Yeah.
But it definitely has a place in fluke fishing around here. That's for sure. So
it's definitely by far the best-selling color. It's glow.
Well,
and then pink shine would be next. It depends where you are. I mean, like New York, Long Island, it's glow and pink shine. It's amazing. You go to South Jersey and it's all chartreuse.
And that's the other thing too. And it's we've seen John's underwater videos. I've tried to take some underwater videos in the middle of Long Island Sound, and in 70 feet of water, it's pitch black. And so you start to, especially on a cloudy day where there's no sun at all and there's very little light penetration past probably 40, 50 feet, depending on what the water clarity is. But, so really the only color that's going to stand out is the glow. So,
yeah.
What about Gulp, John? I know you were, a lot of your videos, there was salmon was a big one for a while. Is that still your go-to?
Oh boy, that's such a hard question. You know what my hesitation is that last year we got really hung up on, and this could have been my fault, is you've got these different bags of Gulp, and some are like soft and have like brown juice in them, and other ones feel like they're rubber and they have this clear juice. And what I was noticing was, irrespective of color, the softer ones with the brown juice were catching best for me, and the batch of orange that I had were like rubber. So I got it in my head that these firmer ones were not absorbing the juice as much. So then I don't know, if I did a video in the fall down here. So it was the fall. I get so messed up now that it's always summer for me. It was in the winter
Yeah,
when I came down here in the winter. I did a test where I dyed Gulp juice and did tests with different Gulp grubs, and said, all right, I think these soft ones are going to suck up more of the dye. I think these firmer ones will, suck up less, And I was completely wrong. They all sucked up a lot of dye, and they all put out dye for a long time. And, I cut cross sections of them and everything. And even the firm ones sucked up that dyed Gulp juice. So I need to get that out of my head. But in terms of color, if I could only have one color, it's going to be that white glow. However, the blue fuse seemed to catch very well for us last year. And you know what? The orange, especially in the ocean, is always a great color. I don't notice that the orange works well in Peconic Bay. But I do out in the ocean. Yeah, it's a great color.
Yeah. So we've talked about color. We've talked about the various sizes of bucktail. Let's talk about rod and reel. Obviously, it came out last year, I believe it was the John Skinner rod.
Last year. Yeah,
I think it was last year. I have them. I bought 3. I love them. They're super light. They're easy to fish with. Great sensitivity. They're strong as an ox. Kind of give the viewers kind of a lowdown as far as rod and reel choice, length, action, all that good stuff.
All right. So for the kind of jigging I do, anything over 7 feet is kind of cumbersome. So and boy, as important as the jig is, the rod is really important, because you want at the end of the day, is what I tell everybody: motion in the strike zone. That's what counts. Now, if you have a rod that has a very soft tip, you can bounce that rod all you want, but that soft tip is going to absorb all of your jigging efforts, and they're not going to get transmitted to the jig. If the rod is too stiff, then it has no spring action to help you bounce those 4 and 5 and sometimes 6 ounce jigs. And also, if the rod is too stiff, when you've got a big fluke on 15-pound braid or 10-pound braid, and they do those big head shakes, if the rod doesn't absorb that somehow, you can break those fish off. So there's some specific things that the rod needs. It needs to have enough of a tip to help bounce those jigs, but it's got to have some give to it. So, in the beginning, I took a 7-foot Tsunami Classic. First of all, I had a 6.5-foot Tsunami Airwave that they don't make anymore. That was a great rod, but I had one, and they didn't make them anymore. So then I took the Tsunami Classic 7-foot, cut 4 inches from the tip, and that was pretty good. But then I found the Jigging World Nexus, and that, with 4 inches off the tip, hell of a rod. But look, these rods are not taking a hacksaw to a factory rod that's meant to be fished at the length that it's designed is not the optimum thing to do. So this is where I had the opportunity to work with Josh at J&H. They've got an unbelievable rod factory behind them. And you know what? I could have made myself some money if I had been I wasted, I don't want to say I wasted, I spent over a year going through prototypes, and I rejected 4 or 5 prototypes, definitely at least 4, because I started off in the fall of one season, went through the entire next season, and didn't get the rod out until the following season, because I just kept saying, no, this one's too this is too that. Finally, it was like, okay, this is it. And I guess at the end of the day, I'm glad that I went through all that, because the finished product is just awesome. I love it. And
Really nice.
what surprised me, it wasn't intentional, but I've had so many people tell me what a great blackfish rod it is. And
Really?
I even put I'll talk about the reel in a second, but I usually use a Quantum Accuracy for Fluke, but I've put like a Maxell 20 on there with 30-pound braid and hung a 10-ounce cannonball and a bucktail and fish plum gut with that rod with Halkias. And yeah, look, you know what? If the rod breaks, it breaks, right? I'll get another one. So I fish rods like that, thinking to myself, oh, let's see if I can break it.
Sure.
And oh my God, the rod stopped fish. It handled the weight. It stopped the fish. So it's an extremely versatile rod. It's a spectacular ocean fluke rod. So I'm just, so happy with it. But yeah, it took me. Josh was so patient. He kept saying, don't say it's ready until you think it's perfect. So I got to give him credit for that, because I was feeling pressure to every time I said no, a little more this, a little less that. But he said, just take your time. We got time, and it worked out.
And it's really sharp. I love the blue. It has that kind of metallic.
Yeah, it's a nice rod.
Yeah, it's a real sharp rod, and
Yeah,
the price point's really good.
Oh,
I think
absolutely,
it's it's that nice mid-range price rod, and it's affordable. So yeah, really.
Yeah.
You were mentioning something about there's another something in the works, a project.
Yeah, there's a spin version of that, and on my YouTube channel, I've tested it down I've tested it up here, or up there, up north. But I've also used it in the Everglades with Goliath grouper in the channels. And again, I'm like, hey, now's the time to break the rod, right? Before I give the okay to run them. And the rod is spectacular. And it's going to be a perfect spin rod for Fluke, but I think it's also going to be a great blackfish rod. And it was a blast on the groupers. And I happened to get some really nice, powerful ones. And oh my goodness, it really came out great. But we're dealing with supply chain issues now, with China being shut down for COVID, and also I think we're looking at probably June for that rod, maybe a little later even. But when it comes out, it's going to be every bit as good as that spin rod, the casting rod.
Awesome. Wow, I'm looking forward to that. I'll definitely be buying a few of those. That's for sure. That's great. It's good stuff. We've got a couple questions here. Let's see. Let me go to the first one.
Nothing from John Halkias yet? I'm a little disappointed.
I think he's in here. Just
I know he's in.
Yeah, don't take his. Yeah, I didn't call in when he was on. So
yeah, it says. Let's see. This is Mike D. Says, John, I'm retiring in 2 years. I'm looking for a place to snowbird like you. Do you have any suggestions on where to start looking? Obviously, looking for an area heavily concentrated in fishing.
Yeah, well, boy, I'm lucky where I am. So I'm on Pine Island in Southwest Florida. So it's by Sanibel and Captiva, but we're on the inside. We're not right on the Gulf. Those are our barrier islands, and it's great. The only thing I could suggest is come down, pick a couple of places, look around. I've got to tell you, I did not look in a lot of places. I had a friend of mine who was a teacher and fished all over Florida, and he's a complete fishing fanatic. And he said, this is the place. And I came down a fair number of times between like 2006 and after. And, we bought a piece of property down here in 2008 and sat on it and didn't put anything on it until just a couple of years ago, just before all the COVID stuff hit. So we had that timing right. But yeah, so my impression about Florida is, it's my third winter down here, and I still haven't been to a lot of places. Like I'm hearing the names of places, and I'm having to look, what coast is that on? So I'm pretty ignorant. But the few times that I've driven other places, I have to say, it's all a matter of taste. But I find a lot of it to be more built up than to my liking. I like rural areas, so Pine Island is perfect for me. It's mostly agricultural, and there's a few small communities on it. But boy, it seems like every time I go somewhere else, it's like really built up. So, you got to look around. But the winters are gorgeous. I mean, the weather is just beautiful all winter long. And I can tell you, by the time I leave in the first week of May, I'm ready to get out of here because it's hot and humid and getting buggy, and I'm happy to be gone. But you come back down mid-November, and that's right after the weather turns, and it's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, you have fall for like what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
We got another question. Susan Jason. Any tips for folks who don't have boats on surf, jetty, pier, sound, and bay fluking?
Where are they? That's the hard part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know where they are. So look, for me, like, the backs of inlets, like, Shinnecock, Mauritius, any place you have access like that. Kayaks, even an inexpensive kayak, just to get to the islands, not even to fish on, just to get to places that you can't fish from shore, because there's a lot of places you can dump a kayak in and then paddle over to an island and cast. And I've done that many times. In fact, a lot of times when I fish Shinnecock, that's what I do. If I want to go shore wading for fluke, I take the lightest, the backsides of inlets are good. Connection issues here, but
That's all right. That's all right.
Nobody's moving.
We can hear you now.
All right,
We
gotcha.
can hear you.
Yeah.
All right,
we can
now I
still hear
got
you.
you.
You're not moving
Okay.
much, but
All right.
Did you get any of my answer?
We did. We got enough of it. It was very good. Stan, we have one for you.
Okay.
Your thoughts on the new?
Having trouble connecting.
Well, we can still hear you. Thoughts on the New Jersey fluke regs?
not too good.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell people what they are?
It's a longer season for sure. I don't like what they did with the two fish between 17 and 17.99. They're going to wipe out that, because everybody's going to target that now. And it's going to wipe out that whole generation of fish. Like I said, it's good for business. For the hardcore guy that's looking to just hunt those bigger fish, it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
But the rules are the rules. I mean, there's no, get more involved. There was only 160 people in on that, whatever they call it. They had like
the petition.
it was like a web thing where you could have went and listened and signed in. There was only 160 people listening. So if you're that upset about it, then get more involved and say something about it. But what's done is done now. It's not going to change. That's what it's going to be for this year, and that's it. We're going to have to live with it.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I know New York, what is it now? So it's May 1st, October 9th. John, do you remember what the limits were? The new limits?
Well, they're going to be 4 at 18 and a half. They were 4 at 19.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's not bad.
So, no, it's not bad. It's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all.
Let's see. We had another person here. Let's see. I lost it. Anthony Festus. He said he was gifted. I was just gifted with a Skinner rod and will be using it this year. He's excited about that. And so that's pretty cool. You're going to love that rod. So we're here with John Skinner and Stan Gola. If you have any questions that you'd like to ask, please do so. Just post it up there in the chat and we'll get to them. James Flynn, John, wanted to know, is the new rod going to be the same color?
No.
Oh.
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's real nice. Hey, you know what? You can see it if you go look on my YouTube channel. One of the Everglades ones. I wasn't catching fish bucktailing, and I was foul hooking a couple small catfish. They weren't actually that small, so I cut the spines off and live lined them because I was curious: are the groupers here or are they not here? And they were there, and so I hooked up some big ones on live catfish. So that's what like a catfish or a catfish, and it's some great battles with that rod. In fact, actually, my last 2 Everglades trips both were with that rod, and yeah, it's really beautiful rod. It's a lighter blue, and it's got the great grips on there and everything. It's going to be good.
Cool, nice. One of the
So JT, look, if you lose me,
we can
get you back in me because the connection is flaky, you can call me, right? You can always do this on the phone or no?
I can we'll figure out something. It looks like it should be fine though.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll play it by ear. One of the
this is my Florida internet connection.
That's all right. That's all right. One of the things, John, that has become popular on my channel, people really seem to enjoy, is the Navionics map. Exploring the Navionics map, like you see behind me. I know you're big into it. What are some of the things you can tell people about, how you use the relief shading and the app itself? Oh, did we lose John?
All right. You're breaking up, but hopefully you hear me. I heard the question, and the answer is if you go into map options and turn on relief shading, then you see that beautiful stuff like behind you in the background. But you've got to turn that feature on to see that, and then the structure just absolutely jumps right out at you. It's a very nice 3D representation, and yeah, I love it. I swear I can just sit there on the couch. TV commercial comes on, and I'll be on Navionics poking around. It's just excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's awesome. And I was able to download it onto my Hot Maps chip that goes into my GPS. So now I'll be able to actually see this on my Lowrance unit, which is going to be pretty cool.
So yeah, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So you guys, May 1st is opening day of Fluke season. What do you guys have planned? Where are you going?
I'm going to be fishing with John on May 4th.
Yeah, because originally the opening was May 4th. So we all had plans to open the season May 4th. I'm going to leave Florida May 2nd, get in late on the 3rd, and fish with Halkias and Stanley on the 4th.
Oh, so you guys
and then they move the season to May 1st. Yeah,
nice.
We're fishing on the 4th. Yeah.
Nice. So, what do you think, Stan? Who's going to? Is there any like competition that goes on here during these?
I've never fished with John. This is my first time.
Yeah. What about Halkias? Is he going to catch him or what?
He's going to get a beating.
Is he?
John's going to take a beat. Just like he did last time.
Actually, Halkias said that they're fishing.
Yeah, John's going to take a beat.
He said what, John? I missed it.
We'll see. Yeah, Halkias is going to drive the boat, so that's his job. Yeah.
So what other Stan, you got any predictions for this? Let's here, you know what? Let's add.
No, you know what?
Yeah.
So it's Halkias.
So that's his job. You can tell Skinner's excited. So just so we're all on the same page, I did not plan
What a waste of bandwidth.
I did not plan this. I was at my local soup kitchen volunteering after work, as I normally do. In fact, we're not going to talk about it now. That's how I met Skinner a few years ago. Stan I met at a Rageaholics meeting around the same time. And JT texted me. He's like, you got to come on this. They're bombing. Please come on and save the podcast. So being the loyal friend that I am, I said, of course.
That is not true. That is not true.
Oh, every word of that is true, JT, and you know it. Every single word. All right, that's all. I'm hanging up, JT. You get back with these guys.
No, stay with us.
No, you can stay with us. Stay with us. So we were just talking about the trip you guys are going on, the first Fluke trip of the year, and Stan said he's going to mop the floor with you.
I agree with that. He did last year. But what did I tell you earlier when we spoke?
Yeah, he told me that.
Don't underestimate the guy above you.
No, you told me.
Very good. I know.
No, I'm talking to Stan Skinner. Stan said he's going to wipe the floor with both of us. I said, I'm sure you will with me, but I wouldn't.
Maybe.
No.
Well, I'll tell you what. So I'm going to assume you guys are going to be in the Peconic area.
What's the
what do you?
spot burning for, JT?
That's all right. I think we all know we're going to be there. But
Yeah.
the reality is, what do you think it's going to be like now that we had a colder winter this year than we had, the last 2 seasons? What do you think? Is it going to be full of sea robins again? What's your prediction?
I'll take my guess. I'm waiting for one of the other guys to talk. I don't want to hijack their podcast, but I am optimistic. We actually had a decent run, Skinner knows this, late May, early June. We had a little bit of a run. We found the fish in a certain area. Skinner did well. I had a charter, I think, that had 11 or 13 keepers in the bay. And historically, when we've had a cold winter, don't ask me why, the bay has produced. I know I've caught big fluke in the bay, blues fishing in mid-April. So I think a lot of people focus on water temperature. I don't think that's the case in the bay. I think it's mostly predicated on bait. That's my opinion. And again, it was not unusual to catch a lot of fluke in April in Peconic Bay. So I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we'll do better than last year.
I do too. I'm looking forward to it. Especially too, we're going to spend more time this year on the weak fish. Skinner got us. Last year we were there. There was a ton of porgy. There were weak fish around, but we didn't focus on any of them. But this year we're gonna. Looks like fun. So cool. We've got another question for you, Skinner. It says, how are you rigging your GoPro for the underwater footage, and have you ever snagged it before?
Okay, it's not a GoPro. It's a Savage Gear Water Wolf that's no longer made. A similar camera is a Go Fish Cam. So these are made to do that kind of thing. But I haven't put a GoPro underwater in a very long time. So if he looks up those cameras, especially, like I said, they still make the Go Fish Cam, he'll get a good idea how to use that. You drop it down on a 3-way rig is one way of doing it. The one tip is that water has to be really clear. If you look at the water and you're not sure if it's clear enough, then it's not clear enough. You have to look at that water and go, oh, this is awesome. And then maybe it will be okay.
Yeah, I found that too. It's hard to film when the water's dingy. Stan, we had a question from James Flynn. He was asking, is there anything new coming out, any new products between you and Skinner?
Nothing in the works right now, but I'm sure me and John will come up with something eventually.
Yeah.
John usually comes to me with the ideas and I go along with whatever he says, and we work on the design and give it to John for the final approval. So, we got a lot out right now. It's really John's
here's the
call.
thing. You can email Stanley on a Monday and say, I would like to have such and such. By Friday, you will have that and, be fishing with it in a few days. So that's how some of these things have come, especially the blackfish porgy jig. Literally, that was an email that, 3 days later, I had the product, took it down the beach and caught fish on it. And it took off from there. And then within a couple of weeks, Stanley couldn't fish anymore because he had to pour heads and paint them. And it really took off.
Nice.
Yeah.
Halkias, we had a question for you that actually just popped in, and I have to find it.
John got all dressed up like he knew this was coming.
We literally planned this at 7:45. We tested it right before and to see if I could access. Yeah, he called me. He's like, I know this is gonna bomb. These guys are dull. Wow. You need to jump in. And I was like, JT, you can't say that about them. They're the nicest guys. And
I told JT I was going to give only one word answers. So.
Yeah, that would have made for a very interesting video. Here it is. It said, what were your thoughts on the new New York fluke regulations? Because you had made a few videos and comments about that.
That's for me, right?
Yep.
Yeah. It's not a popular opinion, but I'm still convinced that the regulations and the science behind how they come up with the quotas and the seasons are flawed. They look at the catch from the year before. We were under quota last year, and I think we were under quota because the fishing has regressed a bit in New York. I know it's a very unpopular opinion. I get everybody likes the liberalization, and I'm going to use a nasty word, and Stan's going to keel over, but I think a slot makes sense to keep the bigger fish going. I don't think 17 to 18 and then 18, one over whatever it was is the answer, but I think somewhere in that 19, 18 to 22 range, I think that makes a lot of sense. The amount of big fluke that are killed every year, that those lay millions of eggs, every fluke over 19 inches is a female. That's scientifically proven, and that's my opinion. And look, I'm a charter boat captain. I really should be advocating more fish and smaller sizes, but I want to see this continue for years and years. And Skinner, I don't want to put you on the spot, but have you not noticed a slow decline in Montauk, certainly Peconic Bay?
You
That's
cut
the
out.
most animated I've seen them in forever. Have you noticed the slow decline
Well, look,
in
I'm sitting here
Montauk?
thinking, look, what do you mean, Montauk? The whole fluke fishery has been in decline for well over 10 years. That's my impression. Quote my opinion, but it's my impression that the fluke fishery has been in decline for a very long time, more than 10 years. And you guys are talking about what you think the bay is going to be like. I'm not optimistic because the whole fishery. And look at Long Island Sound. That place used to be paved. If you go back and look at my first fishing videos, May 16th of, was it 2010 or whatever it was? Oh my God, we had so many fluke out there, and the sound fishery has. Those fish aren't there. There's go out there, you get a few shorts, but I mean catches of 50 to 100 fish were not uncommon. Fishing was great, and yeah, and you know what's happened to Peconic Bay. So the bay and
Garner's Island.
Yeah, we were doing okay
before your time, Skinner, but
right.
It was paved.
Yeah, so who thinks the fluking is getting better? I certainly don't. I mean, I don't see any evidence of that. So
evidently, the guys who make up the regulations
you loosen the regulations on that.
I agree.
Well,
not a popular
you
opinion.
have already explained how they do that. Well, why isn't it? Well, hey, I don't know if it's popular or not, but how does that make sense? It's not logical at all. The quota wasn't met because the fishing wasn't good enough. It's that simple.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's there's definitely. I mean, you catch a keeper fluke now in Long Island Sound. It's we got a couple big ones. The last 2 years, maybe I think we got 2 that were really nice fluke, but just a lot of shorts and yeah, you're excited to catch a short. Well, what?
Now I gotta ask John a question. Do
Sure.
we think this is because of recreational fishing or is it because of commercial?
I have no idea.
Commercial.
Which
No
one?
I
idea.
say commercial.
We think that?
Listen, they arrested that guy in December.
Environmental.
I agree.
But they arrested that guy in December with 200,000 pounds of fluke illegally caught that year. And that, I think, represents 1/3 of the recreational quota. And that was one boat that got caught. How many of these guys are doing that? I'm all for everybody abiding by the regulations, catch your quota. And I'm also for the shorter sizes because you got to understand, 14-inch commercial fish, everyone's up in arms. Why are we 18, 19, whatever we are, and they're 14? Well, because they're going to kill the fish anyway. So you're going to throw back a dead 14-inch fish or you're going to use it towards your quota. It makes sense. But I don't know how many of these guys, I'm not talking about the guys who feed their families, support, put the food in all the restaurants and the seafood markets. Clearly there are guys that do this legit, just like there are recreational guys that are, I'm not going to use a bad word, but that don't follow the rules. But when these guys don't follow the rules, they do it at epic proportions. Epic. I mean, one dragger, 200,000 extra pounds of fluke. Think about that. When the recreational quota is a little over 600,000 in New York.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. I've got a question for all of you. Maybe we can just go around the horn on this, which would be kind of cool. Especially for you, Stan. You fish a lot more tournaments, I think, than any of us, Fluke tournaments anyway. When tournament, this is from Nick Devereaux. When I hope I pronounced your last name right, Nick. When tournament fishing Fluke, stick and stay and make it pay at proven spots, or do you do a lot of exploring and move around? And he also said, Stan, get those shirts in the retailers. People want them.
Okay. Well, my opinion, we stick and stay. We pound a certain area and we stay there. We know the fish are there. We just stay there and just keep pounding it and pounding it and pounding it until we get the fish we need. We don't do a lot of jumping around because when you're moving around a lot, you're losing time. Lines aren't in the water. So it only makes sense to stay. If you know the fish are there, stay there. Fish through it.
Got it. What do you
And
think,
we do a
Skinner?
lot of scouting too. And when we fish it, we pre-fish. So we kind of know where they're living. That's very important. A lot of guys don't pre-fish. You have to pre-fish if you want to win tournaments. Bottom line.
Got it. Skinner, what do you think?
Nothing I can add to that. No, he's right. Especially if you do have the timely knowledge, if you know what's been going on, pound the spot, and like he said, you're not going to catch him when you're running between spots. So, pound it. No, he's right. Yeah.
Got it. Awesome. All right, we had one more here, and I figured we would. Where is it? These are not to put you on the spot, Skinner, but somebody was asking what you think the regulations should have been or could have been. What would you like to have seen as far as Fluke go?
I certainly wouldn't have loosened them up. I'm not. That's all I'm going to say, because whatever I say could piss off somebody. So, honestly, what I will say is, I don't think they've loosened them up. How can you loosen them up in a declining fishery?
Yeah,
No,
I think we all feel that same way. Well, I will. The questions have slowed down a little bit, so I think what we'll do is we'll wrap it up. I really appreciate you guys coming on. Halkias, it was fun having you make a unannounced appearance, and I hope everybody enjoyed themselves. Skinner, I really appreciate you coming on. I really do, and I think a lot of people appreciate all of the different
thanks for having me.
advice, and it was awesome. Very cool. So I hope people enjoyed it. Stan, as always, I hope the three of you come back on again soon, and
absolutely,
we'll talk some more fishing once we're actually doing it. So
sounds good.
I'll see you boys out on May 4th. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll be out there. Awesome. So everybody, thanks a lot for watching this episode. As always, if you like this content, please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you all soon. Thanks, guys.
Take care.
Thanks, Justin.